Chrysler, Fiat, Peugeot, however you refer to Stellantis, they certainly make more than their fair share of iconic cars, but it's their history of how they came together that puts them in the most challenging position. There's no nice way to put this. They're the weakest of the largest car manufacturers around the world. The question is that situation hopeless, or can it be turned around? You give me your 3 strengths of Stellantis.
3 strengths of Stellantis.
And I'm going to help you on this one because I know what you did with Ford. It cannot be Jeep, Jeep, Jeep.
Ram, Jeep. No. All right, let's see. 3 strengths of Stellantis. The one strength is their global footprint, which is also a double-edged sword because it can be introduced a ton of complexity. But they've got a lot of platforms and parts they can draw from to make different vehicles, right? Of course, they've got the 2 American brands, Ram and Jeep, which, based on what I know, are really the money makers for the company because you can charge so much for a full-size truck, and or a Wrangler. It costs like $12 to build a Wrangler because it's like Roman chariot technology. Literally, it's $12, and they're charging you more $60,000. Would you agree with like the Italian side of the business?
That is the boat anchor that holds the company back.
Well, weaknesses, yes. 14 brands. They got a lot of mouths to feed. If you remember, Ford used to have, for many, many years, Ford, Mercury, and Lincoln. They had the mass market Ford, Mercury was in the middle, Lincoln was the luxury brand. And they killed Mercury, in like 2011 because it was just too much. Yes. One other downside I can think of is just the number of different parts they have. And what I mean by that is Chrysler historically has a very sort of diverse history, let's say, because they were founded, Walter P. Chrysler, I think it was 1925. They bought I want to say Maxwell Motors, so they took an existing company, turned that into Chrysler, then they bought the Dodge brothers, they founded Plymouth, then over the years they were mixed up with Mitsubishi, of course there was the merger with Daimler Chrysler in the mid to late 90s, then it was Fiat that came in, now they're tied up with PSA, which is French, so potentially you've got components from pre-merger Chrysler, Mitsubishi, Italian stuff from Fiat. There are now French components floating around. I don't know how you stock a parts department if you go in with a 12-year-old car and hey, I need whatever module or something. How do you even do that? I'm sure they have people that are way smarter than me that have figured that out, but it seems like a problem.
Okay, so let's move from headache and let's point out some key products that are working. Give me some examples of the products that are working over there.
Like we touched on Jeep Wrangler, right?
It is a license to print money.
It's just a cash register that goes cha-ching, 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 because it's a simple body and frame vehicle, solid axles, live axle front and rear. It's pretty basic. It's Roman chariot technology almost. But they charge $50,000, $60,000 for them, and people happily pay.
There's also a point of that. It's brand recognition.
Correct.
Jeep has had brand recognition all the way back to the war. And I would argue it's not just current whatever iteration of this company that's called Stellantis, but even back to the days when AMC acquired Jeep, it was the same reason, because Jeep is this inexpensive vehicle, high profit, and
we used to be inexpensive.
Used to be inexpensive, but they were able to transform it from this kind of utility vehicle to something that people turned into a lifestyle vehicle. They saw the vision, and actually, I'm going to give you a little history. Direct connection from AMC Jeep days all the way to the company today. The chief engineer that came out of AMC, Francois Costain, he is the one that engineered basically all of the products almost to the 2010s.
Wow.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
And when you think about AMC as just a pig of a car company, one of the big strengths that I feel Stellantis has is not the management. It's the people that design, engineer, and build the cars. People like Ralph Scheele. Here's going on an own bias. Love the guy personally, but he's a visionary. But he also gets it. He's a car guy, and everybody that's there, they're car guys, and they just want to do good work, and that's why you get things like a Wrangler Rubicon. That's why you get things like a Dodge Viper. Just stupid, audacious projects, they either define the company, maybe they'll make money, they define the company, or they print money like Jeep Wranglers.
I think it's with those car guys that are, the fundamental core of the company historically. They're the ones that have kept it afloat, because Chrysler only does its best work when they're backed into a corner, right?
Absolutely.
They're like 6 months from bankruptcy and suddenly they pull out a win, right? Like how many times in their history has that happened?
Yeah, when they have a guy like Bob Nardinelli running the company. This was the ex-CEO of Home Depot.
I was just going to say Home Depot.
He did a bad job there. He was basically a GE acolyte. And sometimes that works really well. In car world, it doesn't.
Explain what that means.
What is it? Six Sigma management. Basically, you are number one or number two in any segment you compete in. If you are not, you get out of it. When you are getting into a new business, the decision is you fix, sell, or buy. It doesn't mean you always have to make a new product. You could buy the product and merge it into your business. And then the most controversial, which I kind of believe in, is you constantly are editing your human resources, meaning you're getting rid of the bottom 10% of your company. And so your people are literally, you know what? It's not working out here for you. We wish the best for you, but you need to go somewhere else.
The door's over there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I forget the gentleman's name, the GE CEO. Didn't he
Jack
start?
Welch.
And he's the one that started like the stock buyback type of stuff and really boosting shareholder value. Is he the one?
Boosting shareholder value, yeah, but he was also the one that was really focused on we've got to be the number one or number two.
Gotcha.
And that's what made GE the financial machine that they were for many, many, many years. And then two CEOs, Jeff Immelt, who was one of the acolytes of Jack Welch, it all kind of blew up under him. But you look at GE Aircraft, they're number one or number two, depending on the year.
There you go.
You look at, it's going to be a weird thing, but the biggest in...
You're not going to say Boeing, are you?
No, but like in nuclear technology.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
General Electric.
Yeah.
Financial services and like loans, that kind of stuff. Financial services, it's GE, number one, number two. Anyway, we're getting off a tangent here. Let's switch back into the product. What are some of the products? You said Jeep is working well. What are some other products that are working well?
I think Ram isn't obvious, of
Yeah,
course.
totally,
You make a ton of money selling pickup trucks. They've got the best interior in the business. Their lead has waned, particularly General Motors and Ford, I think, are catching up. But Ram, I think, is still the standard bearer when it comes to interior quality. They were the first to really do, the coil springs, or more accurately, the airbag suspension on their truck to level out the ride, make it more car-like. Their trucks have always looked very good, and they've been rewarded with increasing sales. Right?
Again, great design. That what we said with Mary, a fish stinks from the head. Here's a case where you got the right leader, you got the right design lead, and it's not just the head. It's not just Ralph. Ralph. He fosters that throughout all his lieutenants, like Klaus Bousset, who runs Maserati and Alfa Romeo design. He's doing stunning stuff. But he was the guy, a little known fact, all of the rejuvenation of the interiors at Chrysler was under his lead. He was running the interior.
Because historically, Chrysler has always had the worst interiors of the big three. You go back to the 90s or the late 80s, they were not good.
But you brought up
really
the merger in 98.
Yeah.
Klaus came over from Mercedes. That's where he started, and he's German, even though he lives in Italy and he designs Italian cars. But I'm going off on a tangent.
And he's very tall.
Very tall. He's
very
like
tall.
6'6" or 7" or something like that. Super funny guy. Let's get into the negativity. Because I feel there's more negative here than the others. Like we said with Ford that they're consistent. I say they're focused. General Motors, when they're on it, no one's better. They've got some great high points we talked about, aside from Corvettes. I feel Stellantis has way more threats than any other company. I'm going to hit you with a headline.
Okay.
Stellantis, specifically its Italian business or its European business, is not a business that is engaged in designing, building, and selling cars. It is in business to employ Europeans.
Okay.
That is the entire purpose of that company.
So that involves certain inefficiencies, I would imagine.
So they have
significant ones.
Far too many brands. They are not investing efficiently into specific product categories. Their technology, and whether it's ICE or EV or plug-in hybrid, is woefully behind.
Even on ICE and plug-in, you think?
ICE and plug-in, absolutely.
Interesting.
Yeah. And then, now granted, this comparison is not just for General Motors and Ford, it's for everything. And the biggest thing is, like you said, a lot of mouths to feed, but that's not just going to the grocery store and buying enough pancake mix. That's a function of you're basically pissing on fires all day. You can't stop and take a drink of water. So if you're trying to figure out a way to, what does Lancia do for the rest of its life? What does Chrysler do for the rest of its life? You've got too many brands, especially in Europe. And the first thing I would say is you got to cut down the brands. The second thing I would say, and this is going to border on cultural and political, you have too many problems, too many, how do I nicely put this? Your ass is in a sling with the unions over there. You owe too much in liabilities to unions, and you will at some point go out of business if you keep that. You need to get to a point where you get back to the business. The focus is designing, engineering, building cars that are very focused, much like Ford is focused. They need to be more Ford than General Motors in this area. Like, I'll give you a great example. Carlos put this deal together where they took GM's European operations. Why?
I forgot about Opel.
Yeah, why would you need Opel?
And AMC, what you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
More puzzle pieces.
You already had a very effective product in that was, frankly, one of the big three, quote unquote, in Europe. And they're very good at making cars. We don't see them here. French cars don't sell here. But they're reliable. Their designs are actually stunning.
Very interesting design.
Very interesting. I like some of their designs. I lived in England for many years. I can't say they were unreliable. And then you merged it with the Italian group, and you brought in more brands that frankly weren't as competitive, but still were your direct. Fiat was the French direct competitor. Why in God's green earth would you need the German one?
Yes, exactly. Unless there's some manufacturing facility or technology patent or whatever that the company owned that they wanted, but that's the only thing I can think of.
None of them had EV technology. None of them had plug-in technology. You could say Renault had EV technology, and that's because of its partnership with Nissan. But on the other side of the fence in Paris, they didn't. So you're now with a company that it was said of the Daimler Chrysler merger, it was said that Chrysler would be the one to save Mercedes. Not so much.
Didn't they have a giant pile of cash or something that they came in and just helped themselves too?
And then it was that proved to be the case with Fiat Chrysler.
Okay.
Because Fiat had all these disparate brands before they merged with France, and they weren't making any money on any of it. They had these crazy liabilities with the unions, but then here's this plum sitting in Auburn Hills that was printing money with Jeep, with Ram, and had products that people got excited about. Rams and Jeep Wranglers and SRTs. And if we look back on it now in 2024, back to 2009 when this happened, we can say with clarity, Chrysler did save Fiat. And it got to the point, and this is where we get a little bit into the business
Sergio
talk.
got it for nothing, basically.
Sergio got it for nothing because Fiat was worthless. Fiat, literally, the Agnelli family that owned the majority of it, they foisted it onto the French government because they just wanted to be out from underneath the liability.
The French or Italian government, you saying?
No, when they did the merger with Carlos.
Okay.
The French government owns a big piece of it. So they foisted it onto the French, and the idea was to get out from underneath the liability. That's all they were looking to do. Kind of like selling Land Rover, Range Rover for $1. That's what BMW did. That they just wanted to get out from underneath the liability. So here you are with a company that does have some unique product. It's not all bad.
No.
You look at the new Charger. Okay, so they're saying EV, but let's go back to what we talked about earlier. You got the Ralphs of the world. You got the Klaus Boussets of the world. You got the Mark Trossels of the world. And Mark Allen, he's retired. These guys realized, EV, maybe in the future, 25 years in the future, but today, ICE.
Yeah.
So they backed off it's only going to be EV, and they put in, what do they call it, the Hurricane 6?
Straight 6, yeah.
Tell us about the Hurricane 6.
Well, it's a 3-liter inline 6. I believe it's based off of the 2-liter 4-cylinder they have. They use it with the plug-in hybrid drivetrain in the Jeep Wrangler, which I think that 4-cylinder engine is very good. It works well in that application. As I understand, the Hurricane is an offshoot of that because it's very easy to just tack on 2 additional cylinders, right? Make a longer crankshaft, longer camshafts, and pretty much have a new engine from your existing design. It's the same with the Ford modular V8, right? You'd have the 4.6, you can stroke it and have the 5.4, there's the V10 as well. So yeah, using what you have, expanding it, changing it to make something new. And from what I've seen, I don't know that I've driven the Hurricane yet, but it's a straight...
Have you driven the Jeep?
Have I driven
the
Jeep?
They said it's in the Grand Wagoneer.
Oh yeah, I don't think I've driven it.
Yeah.
I like the 4-cylinder in the Wrangler plug-in, but I don't believe I've driven the Hurricane. But it's a straight 6, so it should just be smoother than whipped cream, because it's just inherently perfectly balanced.
It's a wonderfully balanced engine, yes.
And they've got 2 versions, like a standard output with 400 whatever, I don't remember the numbers, horsepower, and then they've got a high output version with 500 and something. So that's going to deliver better performance than the Hemis it's replacing, right? I mean, that sound is good. You can't beat a V8 with a cross-plane crankshaft. I mean, that's just that rumble, that iconic American sound. But functionally, the Hurricane's probably the better engine.
The way I see it, they looked across the room and they said, guys, this EV thing is not going well.
Yeah.
And we can't commit.
And they were late to the game anyway.
They were already late to the game, and we cannot commit, frankly, our most iconic car
Correct.
to all EV. Because as it is, it's going to be hard to sell them on. Those people will be the last ones to go over, if at all.
Yeah.
And again, for the avoid, I keep on saying this. I don't hate EVs. I hate the mandates. I hate that the government doesn't understand reality and how to bring a new business about, how to create new product. There's no innovation. The government is not known for innovation. No. Look at the cost of healthcare, but I'm getting off on a tangent. Anyway.
Do you want government healthcare?
We won't get on that topic.
I had to ask.
He had to ask, yes. So they said, okay, what can we do?
Yeah.
If we're not going to be able to ensure a long life to the Hemi because of tightening emissions both in Europe and here, what about this 6-cylinder? And I think that was a stroke of genius. And I think the other stroke of genius, they said, we're going to make this car, and if you look at the new Charger, I love that it's a 2-door. Love it, love it, love it. I love that it looks more like the 69. But the genius was, let's make the wheelbase a little bit longer, and we'll do the 4-door. Yeah. And the 4-door will look just like the 2-door.
Basically the same car.
Beautiful car.
I need to sit down and really look at one. I haven't.
It's beautiful.
I haven't digested it yet. I'm optimistic about what I've seen in pictures.
Again, let's be very clear here. I think Stellantis is the most one up a certain creek without a paddle.
They're vulnerable.
They got the biggest vulnerability.
Yeah.
But I also think they have the best group of people, not managers.
Foot soldiers.
Yeah,
doing
if you
the
consider
work
Ralph
every day.
a foot soldier, or like they could,
he's the squad leader.
The engineers that are there, they are car people.
Yeah.
And so they have so much of an opportunity, but I don't think they can. I think they're on their 9th life, because to be successful in the world of tomorrow, the costs of investing to innovate are so much higher than they were in 1998. In what it had was AMC. What happened in 1980 or 91 or something like that? I don't remember. No, 87. It was 87.
It was a long.
It was a long time ago.
Long time ago.
So that was the investments weren't $3 billion for a new car.
Correct.
And you didn't have crazy emissions, and I keep on bringing this up, and I'm not trying to start a culture discussion or a political discussion. You have a huge, ridiculous liability with the unions in Europe. You got to get out from underneath that. Otherwise, you will die. And we didn't even talk about that with here. And again, this could be a political union discussion.
I'll say this. I'm a big union supporter, but my advice to the unions, as well as the C-suite, don't be greedy. Across the board.
I can't believe we agree on this.
Across the board.
I was going to say the same thing.
It's the same. There's no excuse for executives to be making millions upon millions of dollars and getting golden parachutes when they completely destroy a company. And the union workers also need to realize that things like the Jobs Bank, just a bad idea.
What's the guy's name?
Sean Fain at the UAW? Yeah. Don't be greedy.
He is the
Don't be
Antichrist in the car world, and it's not a union, not a pro or anti-union thing. He's an idiot, and I'll tell you why he's an idiot. Because he decides, I want to work less and I want more money right at the point where automation is going to do away with a lot of jobs. So he literally got his rank and file. The turkeys voted for Thanksgiving. That's the best way to describe it.
Yeah.
And
Potentially,
he is a horrible manager, not a leader. He needs to go. Granted, I'm going off on a tangent.
Sounds a little political, folks.
Little political, but
we know how
it's more economic.
Yeah.
Because what's going to happen is all of these, the UAW, we're talking about the UAW here, these companies are going to say, guys, we can't afford it. We're not selling these electric cars. We talked about in our GM episode, acres and acres and acres of Equinox and Blazer EVs no one's buying, which means these companies are going to get into financial trouble, which means they're going to put people on the street. What happened last time, you and I had to bail out these three companies. And that's what's going to happen again.
2 companies, right?
Well, Ford was lucky last time.
They mortgaged the Blue Oval, too.
That's because
Mullally's.
Mullally went to Wall Street, and he drove out of Wall Street with a pile of cash right before it shut down. Literally.
No, yes, he did.
But they don't have that now.
No, they don't.
So we've got all of these crazy agreements that are threatening the survival of these car companies, and the one that's at most at risk is Stellantis.
I would agree, just because there's so much going on there. There are multiple European brands, all these mouths to feed. They're behind on the EVs, which might be a good thing in this case.
Oh, we forgot about a major thing.
What?
Ralph, I love you. You know I love you. Dodge Hornet, terrible.
You were mentioning that earlier.
It is so ugly. It is the wrong execution of car. What they've done is they've taken an expensive car and tried to make a cheaper version of it. Disaster. There is no one on this planet that will spend 35 grand on that or 30 grand on that and not buy a Buick Envista, or if they want something bigger, they buy a Toyota RAV4 and get a more and the Maverick. Like, what a horrible car. The only ones I've ever seen on the road are rental cars.
Or M-plate.
I don't even see them here. Like, normally
I don't either.
I remember. Look at you.
My notes, I was telling him earlier, I don't have a bear trap of a brain. I have to write things down. I wasn't blessed with that recall and that memory, so I take notes.
You got to exercise your brain like you buy. That's how it is.
I don't do that either.
I had never been to the Detroit area, Michigan at all, until 2007.
Okay.
And I always wondered, as a New Yorker or a Californian or living in Europe, like, who buys a Pontiac G6? And I came to Michigan. I'm like, now I see where they're all sold. And
literally in the Tri-County area.
Literally.
Yeah.
And you could apply that to any other car you wouldn't think would sell well. Yeah. No one's buying Dodge Hornets here, even here. Horrible. Yeah. Horrible designs and overpriced. I think there's a number of these out there. I think, okay, I'm not a minivan guy. The execution of the minivan, specifically the Stow and Go, does very well. You're only talking about 100,000 units a year. That's not going to make or break anything. That's actually, if you think about it, that's a niche car now.
Which is tragic, because most people in SUV should be driving a minivan.
They should.
Honestly.
I love my firefighter brother, but that man, he so wants a minivan. He used to be so cool.
Okay.
He was like a professional snowboarder. He was the coolest dude. He had girlfriends fly in from Japan. And now he's likes minivans.
How many kids does he have? 2. Well, there you go.
But his wife doesn't want a minivan. She refuses to get a minivan.
Why
he drives an F-150.
Why the stigma, though?
Because they're horrible. It's the automotive equivalent to stretch pants. It's saying to the world, I've given up.
Like elastic waist jeans?
Yeah, that's exactly what they are. Anyway, back to product. What other bright points within the Stellantis product, either now or in the near future?
The Giorgio platform, right? That underpins the Quadrifoglio products over at Alfa.
It's an unattractive car. It's uncompetitive. They're totally unreliable.
They drive well. Unreliable, yes. I remember Car and Driver did a long term on one. It was in the shop more than they had it, I think.
But that's not just something that they're making up. Like, I've got friends of mine that lemon laud these things. They're so bad.
Jeez. Okay, that's not ideal.
In person, I just don't think they're attractive. There's no way I would choose that over a BMW.
Okay. You think BMW is more attractive?
Way more attractive. Come on, an M2?
M2 maybe, but most of the rest of their lineup, I just scratch my head. I'm like, who is in charge of their design these days? You used to be, like, the one of the most beautiful cars of all time. We talked about a early 60s Continental.
Yeah.
But I also think in the same breath you could say E46 3 Series.
Oh, stunning.
Like, I think they came out in
Handsome.
99, 2000
Yep.
to maybe mid-2000s. Just the right size, beautiful proportions, super clean, just gorgeous. Beautiful car. Or the, I'm going to get the number wrong. Is it E39 for the 5 Series?
Oh, yeah.
5 Series of that era.
2000.
Yeah.
E39 540, one of my favorites.
You did it! That's
Yeah.
gorgeous. Why are you designing these giant bucktooth grills and the back end, the bangle butt that they had years ago? Like,
Oh.
Why? You've done such beautiful work.
You know what? While we're on this topic, could you do me a favor?
Sure.
Speak to a specific viewer of mine.
Okay.
Say, Dear Amro,
Dear Amro,
the E65 BMW,
the E65 BMW,
you are dead wrong.
you are dead wrong.
It is one of the ugliest designs on the planet.
It is one of the ugliest designs on the planet.
Love,
Love,
the MotoMan team.
the MotoMan team.
Okay, now we can move on.
Now we can move on. Is that the flame-surfaced one? Because after
That's the bangle. That's the bangle butt car.
After E46 and E39, I
It's
just
the
stopped
7
caring.
Series, the E65 7 Series. It had this terrible back end, and when you have to explain to somebody why a design is the way it is, you've lost them.
Yeah.
You've lost the plot. Okay, so your prescription, how can Stellantis move forward and be a going concern? Because I think they're only like 2 steps away from the drain. That's how bad this is. That's how big of a problem this union issue is.
Is it just
And the
the
product.
union
It's
issue?
the union issue. It's the lack of
compounding,
focus on
yeah.
the product. There's so many layers.
Constellation of problems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So explain to me, what is your prescription, your strategy to see them through the woods and be a going concern?
Perhaps they need to make a body-on-frame Imperial. No. A call back to our Ford episode. No.
True story. The person who designed the 61 Continental designed what car after that?
It was the Chryslers, wasn't it? The Imperials.
Imperials.
I forget the designer's name. But anyway, what is my prescription to save Stellantis? And honestly, I don't know. Short of like shedding brands and
Can they be
focusing
saved?
more-
I'll ask that question.
I would like to think so. Perhaps it involves bailouts, which nobody really wants. But they're going to... It may depend on how the Charger launch goes, too, right? Because that's coming up. There should be a first drive soon, I would think. It's supposed to come out in the summer, and they're doing electric and gasoline engine in that, of course. So maybe they're going to save face there. Ram and Jeep are profitable, I would imagine. But short of getting rid of brands, I don't know, right? There's just so many. And they're in Europe, too, which makes it more difficult.
That is the problem. That's why the Agnellis foisted this thing to the French.
Yeah.
That's why I used that specific term. They didn't sell it, they foisted it on them. And now they're sitting there and they're laughing. It's like that Curb Your Enthusiasm episode where you foisted the secretary onto somebody else. My prescription, I mean, from the
I honestly don't know. I don't know what the answer is. It's not as cut and dry. It's not as clear
it's going
as
to be
with
ugly.
the others.
Like,
yeah.
it is going to be a bloodletting to fix it. Number one, I agree. You got to get rid of brands. And when I say get rid of brands, we're talking about like no sacred cows. Jeep staying,
Yeah.
Ram is staying.
Got it.
You get to pick one, Chrysler or Dodge. Not both. You get to pick one, Fiat, Alfa Romeo,
One of the
Lancia.
Italians. Yep.
And then you get to pick one French.
That's not a bad strategy.
It's it.
The one and done strategy. Well, each country gets a brand.
That's it.
Yeah.
And I would even go so far as to saying maybe you don't get to pick one in each country in Europe.
Yeah.
Because number one, you've got way different, the competitive landscape is totally different now in Europe because you're starting to see the inroads of Chinese manufacturers there. And they're making headway in a way I never thought they would, where previously the Korean manufacturers had a hard time because Europeans are very provincial. No offense, but you're provincial. And they're like, I only buy the French car. That's why you had the Vauxhall and the Opel.
Brand loyalty.
The world's changing. People are like, I got no money.
That's what I wanted to ask you, literally just before you brought it up. What we've seen from Korea over the last 2 decades is absolutely astounding, I think. How far the Hyundai Motor Group has come,
Vision.
right?
Absolutely.
Why are they able to do that, where these European brands that are much more established?
It's a combination of things. There is baggage,
Yeah.
but they, number one, they think in generations. Asians think generationally. Western cultures think
Financial quarter.
tomorrow. Yeah, seriously. I mean, that's just the reality of it. And because they think generationally, they give up the short-term win to say, you know what? We can win the war, we're going to give up the battle. So maybe we don't make this one the be-all and end-all, but if I'm willing to go and hire the well-known designer, I'll put that investment in, and I'll give up an investment on something over here. Or, you know what? I may not be able to compete in every single segment, meaning, hey, I can't afford to compete against the mid-sized pickup truck segment or the small pickup truck segment, so we're not. So they make the conscious decision to not field a pickup, so they are I guess we're getting back to the Six Sigma strategy. We are the number one and number two in the segment, and that's what they've become. But notice they're also the contrarian investor in that they keep sedans around when other people are leaving because they realize the market's never going to go to zero.
No, it's not.
So we'll keep 200,000 units volume a year.
Yeah. If you look at Ford, because they famously jettisoned all of their small cars and their sedans, where the last generation Fusion, I think, it wasn't the best vehicle in the segment by any stretch. It was a good car, and it looked good.
Yeah.
And you mean to tell me you can't make money selling, I don't know what the number was, 250,000 of those a year, because that's probably what it went out at.
Yeah.
400. I mean, when they first came out, they were probably selling 300 or 400,000 a year. And you mean to tell me you can't make money doing that? Why?
Absolutely.
That's huge volume. Like, that's more than probably Mazda sells in a decade.
Mazda is doing, like, their biggest volume car is maybe $150, $175, and that's a CX-5.
They would be overjoyed to sell 250,000 of something per year. And Ford's like, nah, we're done.
Can I share an unusual piece of data with you?
Sure.
CX-90. Take a guess how many of those they sell a month? A $60,000 car.
No clue. 10,000.
Close. 5,000 units a month.
Okay, 5,000. Okay.
That's crazy high volume for that car.
For them at that price.
Like, good for them.
Good for them.
Anyway, back to Stellantis.
Yes.
So
we keep going on these tangents.
I think
to bring it back.
If I were the emperor of Stellantis, shed the brands. That's the obvious one, but we're talking no sacred cows. If Alfa Romeo's got to be shuttered or sold to somebody who can properly take care of it, fine.
Right. Who's that going to be?
Well, the Volkswagen Group wanted it for how many years? But then what do they need that for? They don't need that. That's like a headache.
They got their own problems.
So one brand, probably one brand in Europe. I don't think you need this provincial French and Italian thing. Let's just do one and be done with it. Then, and I know this isn't sexy for a car show, you got to get out from underneath the unions. You got to figure out a way that, guys, we're not trying to screw you. We're not trying to make money on your backs, but if you don't give up these obligations, we will all go down. Because that's what's going to happen. They've got a boat anchor tied to their leg, and they are going to drown. And if they don't realize how bad it is, they will not live to see another day. Ford and GM don't have that problem. And that's part of the reason I'll give Mary Barra and the board credit. They were like, you know what? We're going to foist this Opel on these idiots in France.
We
so
don't need
basically,
it. Get rid of it.
They got foisted twice. And then the other thing, and I think this is the most important thing, let the Ralphs and the Klauses and those, just let them run the company. They know what to do. Just stay out of the way. All you got to do is make sure the bills are paid and let the car guys, basically the animals should have the key to the barn. I think that is...
Ralph ran the SRT brand, right?
He ran Dodge, then he ran SRT, and then he took over all
a different
global.
situation.
He runs all of global design.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's my prescription.
Okay. A tough pill to swallow for Stellantis, but maybe necessary with all these mouths to feed and liabilities.
You know what we forgot to talk about? You were going to bring up the Ram EV.
Yes, they've got the Ram 1500 Rev and then the Ram Charger with the range extender. We've seen a few electric trucks already. You've driven the Cybertruck.
I have.
Our friends over at the TFL Studios.
No, I've driven a different one.
Oh, you
I
drove a
one
different.
in
I thought you drove
California.
theirs.
No, I wasn't there for theirs.
And you didn't get cut too badly. How many stitches?
Actually, I did get cut pretty bad.
You did, yeah.
I did, yeah.
I'm not just a meme.
No, it's not
just a meme. It's that
We're not
bad.
making anything up. I wasn't paying
What
attention.
part cut you?
The frunk.
Was it a burr on the edge or what?
No, it was just I was trying to show my girlfriend something, and I got a little too fresh with the car, and
It shouldn't cut you.
I literally was like, "Look at how sharp the edges are." I was just literally, "Be careful what you wish for, because you will get it." I was a moron.
And then you're like, oh crap, I'm
So
bleeding.
tell us a little bit about, like, give me the idea, like, do you know specs and what's the Ram EV going to be?
There's the Rev 1500 should have up to 500 miles of range, which they're targeting, which will give it a big leg up over the Lightning.
How many kilowatt hours is that?
229, which is just,
That's
if
huge.
you thought the Hummer was heavy,
That is a plantation.
wait until you see, it's a whole lithium mine that they're putting in there.
It's like southern Canada.
Right? Yeah. So yeah, 229 kilowatt hours and up to 500 miles of range is what they're targeting. We'll see what happens. A lot of weight you're hauling around if you're going 40 miles to work and home again. Like, you don't need that,
I was just going to say that's definitely, they're trying to get bragging rights to towing. That's the entire purpose.
basically. Yeah. But more interesting is that they're going to have the range extended model, which should be a plug-in hybrid, right? It's
Yes.
the Ram Charger. So big horsepower and torque from that, but also a gasoline engine. So if battery
Who
pack.
else is doing that in a large pickup?
In a large pickup, who is? I don't think we've heard anything from Ford. Of course, has the Power Boost hybrid, but that's just
That's
a
different.
straight hybrid.
Yeah.
That's not a plug-in. You don't hook that to the wall. I don't think GM has any hybrids. They used to have, maybe 15 years ago, their SUVs and trucks had a hybrid drivetrain, if you remember.
Yeah, I drove the Escalade.
But yeah,
Yeah.
not anymore.
Not anymore.
And Chrysler had a hybrid, didn't they, with the Aspen and Durango? Didn't
That
they
had a
offer
hybrid?
a hybrid on that?
Oh, they did.
Like forever and a day ago?
But it was like for 2 minutes it was available. for
Yeah,
sale.
like they made 12 of them, and
Yeah.
they're like, yeah, we're done, whatever.
What is your take on the design of that vehicle?
Of the Ram
Yeah,
truck?
EV.
They took the Ford approach. There's the Ford and the GM approach. GM went ground up redesign, totally different. The EV is totally different from their combustion powered pickup trucks. That allows them, I think, to optimize certain things for more range or horsepower, fit a bigger battery pack, whatever. There are certainly upsides to that. Ford, on the other hand, just took their F-150 and electrified it, which may not be as optimized as an EV, right? You might be leaving some money on the table there, some whatever, meat on the bone, but it's just an F-150. It's the same parts you would use. If something breaks, you need warranty work, it's the same as any other F-150. All the accessories fit. So if you're a contractor or something, you want your ladder rack or whatever, it bolts right up. It's just an F-150 they electrified.
So it's like the iOS of the pickup truck.
Something like that, yeah. And I think the Ram is taking the Ford approach, which kind of makes more sense. Build on what you've already got. Probably costs less too, using an existing frame and axles and stuff. But that's my take. And as design, that's what you specifically asked about. I think the Ram Rev will. I think it looks good because it's a Ram. It's just a Ram truck that they electrified, and that's already a very handsome vehicle. I know you disagree.
I disagree
Strenuously.
vehemently, yes. So this is one of these instances where they missed an opportunity.
Okay.
As you can imagine, I follow Ralph on his Instagram, and he's very proud of his work, and he promotes his staff a lot.
Yeah.
He shows their work, shows their sketches, and the people. Well, he showed the Ram, the EV, the first one, the concept, which was at CES. It had this cool design. It had this amazing interior that had three rows in it.
Suicide doors, and it had the third row of seats.
It was a lot of innovation.
Yeah.
Still looked like a pickup truck. It wasn't a Cybertruck.
Looked
It looked
like
like
a
a pickup.
Ram.
Yeah. But wow, like we need this. People got excited. Then he honestly puts on his Instagram the picture of the production car, and he's like, "Hey guys, look what we just did." And everybody was like, "What? You screwed us." Like you
Bait and switch.
This is
ultimate
like
bait and switch.
This was like you showed me a picture of this girl you want to set me up on a blind date,
Yeah.
and Cruella DeVille shows up into the restaurant.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going out with her. And everybody was so negative about it because It was so pedestrian.
Sure.
It was just a different front end.
But the vehicle looks good. I think it looks great even. But the expectation was set for something different. So I get why people would be angry.
You didn't manage expectations.
Yeah, correct.
But more importantly, here is an opportunity to set yourself apart. Let's be honest with each other. You don't have enough money to compete in this area. You just don't. You don't have the technological advantages that General Motors and now Ford have in EV. So let's do this. Let's, instead of trying to be the work truck, the play truck in the EV world, why don't we try to stake out the unclaimed territory between the GM and Ford and the Tesla?
Okay.
So let's go with that audacious design. I know I've been overusing the term. Let's do something that is 3-box, not a triangle, but let's make it. Like, remember when the Ram was a Dodge at that point? Bob Lutz's era at...
Like 94?
Yeah, when it had changed the Peterbilt front end. Remember how...
Oh, huge.
That shook the
Changed
truck world.
Everything.
I'm not a truck guy, and I was like, that's cool. That's what they should do.
You need just a watershed design moment.
Because you don't have the technology.
Yeah.
And you could sit here and tell me that 500 miles of range, all you're doing is you're just giving me a battery and making the thing 10,000 pounds. So you're stealing from Peter to pay Paul.
What we haven't talked about yet is the supplier side of the industry, because so much of the cars you buy are provided by other companies.
Because it was
and the innovation
stitched together. Yeah.
Correct. So why should, I mean, General Motors would never design their own tires. Why would you do that? You go and buy from Michelin or Bridgestone. You're not going to engineer your own fuel delivery system. You're going to call Bosch and say, hey, I want direct injection, right? Does Stellantis have an opportunity to do the same with their EV technology and buy the best that's available from a third party to bring them up to speed with the others?
I would say no.
You think not? Okay.
And I can give you some facts on
No,
this.
sure. I'm genuinely curious.
I feel like there's a land grab right now. Kind of like the technology world in 1980s. You're getting all the guys that have money and investment companies are going into the technology, this technology world, meaning electric propulsion, and they are buying the bleeding edge technologies. And I'll give you a very good example of it. YASA. YASA is basically a pancake motor. And so they make this very small, very powerful electric motor, and the purpose of this design...
The UK firm?
UK firm. The purpose of the design is to go either into performance cars, lightweight performance cars, or make them into hub motors. We're talking game-changing design. You guys already know these motors because they're used in the Revuelto and every Ferrari hybrid. So Lamborghini and Ferrari have the same electric motor. But how long will that last? Because guess who bought the company? Mercedes.
They're like, no, you're not getting this.
And they're like, screw you guys, I'm going home.
We're writing a big check, and yoink, that's ours now.
And so now they bought the technology, but that's not the only one. BMW's invested into a solid-state battery company, and you need to bet that if they're buying these companies, for at least the short to medium term, they're going to use them as competitive advantage. So a company that is already behind the 8 ball, you're getting these guys with tons of cash, like Mercedes, like General Motors, like BMW, that are buying the technology that are no longer going to be available off the shelf, and these guys are going to have to either fix, sell, or buy. This conversation keeps on coming back to General Electric. I don't know why.
Maybe it's the aviation aspect
Could be.
of it, right?
Yeah, I could use a jet engine in my little tail dragger.
Could you fit a jet engine on there? That would be fascinating.
But you bring up a very good point.
Yeah.
Can they catch up? I don't think so.
Yeah. Well, from that point, yes, it makes a lot of sense.
In the bloodletting that's coming, I see the first company to go poof is Stellantis. And I see the pieces being absorbed elsewhere. Like a Jeep is going to be absorbed elsewhere.
Sure.
I don't know if Ram would survive, but I could see the volume and the brain trust of Ram going to Ford.
I don't know how it couldn't survive. Like, it's going to survive. It's so big.
Stellantis or
Ram as a brand.
Oh, I don't know if the brand would survive. I could see Ford or GM bringing all of the people into it, taking that volume, and bringing out new Sierras and new F-150s.
Yeah.
But this is, we're talking I don't want to get
I
into
don't
this
see
right
that
now.
happening,
The
but who
industry
knows?
the industry's going to change huge because of where we're going with a combination of automation, number one. Number two, as people move away from car ownership, I don't like it. I don't like that people want to move to this I own nothing surf mentality. But as that happens, you start getting into more, not just ride share, but car share. We're talking 25
I don't
years
think,
in the future.
I don't think that's that's a buzzword like AI everybody's talking about right now, or whatever mobility solutions. I roll my eyes so hard every time I hear the word mobility.
I'm not trying to give you the mobility solutions.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to tell you is, as more cities in Europe crack down on traffic into their city centers,
Sure.
and they start charging you, congestion charging, and they're actually trying to do it in New York City, that's where you're going to start seeing volumes go down. So I'm telling you from empirical evidence, not what do they call it? Bullshit bingo, which I used to play when I was in tech.
Okay.
So, is this going to happen tomorrow? No.
Yeah.
But the biggest, the most vulnerable of the three we've talked about is Stellantis.
I would agree. It's patched together. It's a quilt of different companies, and it's tenuously stitched together, it seems.
So, are we at the point where we're turning around to the audience?
Maybe. But I wanted to ask you one other question. I can't.
Yes, sir.
It's escaping me right now. It was about
your
ride
age.
sharing. I mean, in Europe, you can get away without a car because they have a great public transit system, especially in like Germany. It's very good, but we can't do that here. We're not dense enough, right?
The issue that we have now, this is where we get into back to a cultural political discussion. People can't afford cars.
Correct.
We're getting to the point that we were at 50, we're down to 48 for the average price of a new car. I have tried so many times for episodes, hey guys, you don't need to buy a $50,000 SUV. If you really want a new car, you can buy a $28,000 Camry.
Yeah.
$29,500, you got all-wheel drive. But no one listens to me. I tell people, just buy a used Prius in cash for $5,000 and start saving money and work your way up to a better car. No one does that. And we're at this point now.
It's vanity.
Yeah, we're at this point now where people collectively are spending beyond their means. I know I'm starting to sound like Dave Ramsey. They are spending beyond their means, and now, I just read this not but 2 days ago, repossessions
Oh, I bet they're
up 30%.
Well, what is a
2024
car
alone.
loan, like 84 months?
But this goes back to what happened with the virus. People were paying too much for cars.
Yeah.
They got in over their head.
Correct.
And most likely they were working at a mid-sized company that shouldn't have been funded in the first place, and now they're put on the street. I mean, I don't want to sound doom and gloom here, but I don't see it. No matter which way the election goes, I don't see 2025 being a rosy year from an economic point of view. And if this trajectory continues of people living beyond their means, that's where we're going to see volumes of cars go down. That's why I say it, and that's why I'm saying it's not a buzzword. I'm looking at it from the economics of nuts and bolts of the economy that underpins people's lives.
It's very American to live beyond your means, I feel, right?
I totally disagree.
You totally disagree?
Totally disagree. I feel like it's very social media to live beyond your means. And if people were to get their head out of their ass and get their heads away from the phone and stop tapping on the phone so much, and be kind of like you spend your afternoons wrenching on this car. You don't have to be a car guy.
Correct.
Go skiing or go for a walk. Take your girlfriend for like a picnic. I don't know.
So it's the aura, the influence of social media that's driving unnecessary spending.
Yeah.
Like fast fashion. There's like some pile of clothing, I think, in Bolivia that you can see from space. Like old clothing they just dumped there.
I didn't know this.
Double check. I could be wrong. I've been wrong once, maybe twice before in my life, but double check that. There's just some giant pile of garments they dumped.
That were
like
unsold.
In Bolivia.
It's new clothes unsold.
I believe they're new clothing, yeah.
See, that's ridiculous.
It's absurd, this vast overproduction. Yeah. And then the fast fashion aspect, everything's changing constantly and everybody has to be on trend. Spending beyond their means.
I mean, I know I sound like an old man at this point, and now you sound like an old man.
I am. I was born an old man, sir.
Actually, you always were. I feel like we're at that point where we're screaming, "Get off our lawn," because we look at.
Here's what I wanted to bring up earlier.
Okay.
What if you had a car or a small truck or something with vinyl floors, a vinyl seat, crank windows? Think of it as maybe a modern day 2CV if you're going to do the car form factor.
I would love it.
15 grand, let's say, or less than 20 grand.
How about
would people buy that?
I think they would.
As long as it meets, whatever emissions requirements there are. I mean, having a three-way catalyst is a good thing. I mean, you don't want to breathe the air coming out of one of these. If everybody's driving one of those, it's not pleasant.
Tree hugger.
But basic emissions control system, if it's a combustion engine, and meet crash standards to a good level. But crank windows, I don't need adaptive cruise. I don't want 15 different computer chips in there.
How about 10 airbags? Do we need 10 airbags?
Some number of airbags to meet the standards.
How about one?
How about 2 for your passenger?
You're getting greedy now. Do I call you Fane now? Leader Fane?
Right?
Yeah.
No, but a very basic car. A back to basics, but also very affordable. Would people buy that? I don't know that there's a market.
It's called a Tata Nano, and it's for sale for like $3,000 in India right now.
Is it still available?
I think it is.
I drove one of those.
Correct me for that in the comments below. Sid would know that.
10 or 15 years ago, I drove one.
Horrible, but
definitely.
affordable.
Correct.
But now we're really far off the plantation here. So we're both saying the same thing. Stellantis needs to right-size the ship by getting back to basics, and we're thinking that America needs to right-size the ship by getting back to
personal
basics.
level. Correct.
So, am I the president and you will be the vice president? Or you would president and I'm the vice president?
You can be the president.
I'll be the president.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is where we're announcing our...
Moto.
We're announcing our candidacy.
What year?
President of what? I have no idea.
I have no idea. I'm delusional.
Yeah. Okay, I think now is the point where we have to, because now we are completely
rambled nuts. And we're way out in the weeds.
People don't understand. We started 3 hours ago. We've been sitting in his garage and breathing the fumes in here for 3 hours. So that's where we're going to say, how does Stellantis turn it around?
Correct.
And I'm going to ask the question: do you think Stellantis even has a long-term future? Let us know in the comments below or via our social media. MotoMan TV all word. MotoMan TV all word. And with that, I want to say thank you to this man here. I greatly appreciate you having me here.
As always, a pleasure.
This
was a lot of fun.
Really enjoyed this.
3 episodes. Check out the other 2, right?
It was a great discussion.
Yeah, I agree.
I always love coming and visit this spot here. What you don't know, he's got a homemade urinal in the shop, like homemade. How cool is that? That's a cheapskate. And if you found this
and on that note, on that bombshell,
I think we just have to say goodbye. You can check out the members only playlist here until we see you in the next episode. Bish Talks.